Hello everybody, here we are today doing our season preview for the Calgary Flames, talking about why this could be a weird year for Calgary. So before we get started on that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So last season, the Flames finished with 81 points and missed the playoffs in consecutive years for the first time since the early to mid 2010s. And that was not necessarily a fun year for the fans, I'd imagine, but I feel like last season could be an indicator of what this year could be. At least that's what we're hearing about, as this is a team that could make a lot of trades of veteran players and then also isn't expected to do a whole lot. I don't think fans expect a whole lot out of them in terms of Calgary fans, and I think the NHL landscape as well doesn't really expect Calgary to be this side that is going to finish second or first in their division by any means. So with all that kind of being started and brought up in a depressing way, what are some storylines to talk about for the Flames for this season? So the first storyline is talking about whether or not this is going to be the year of the Wolf, and in this case we're talking about Dustin Wolf, a young goalie for Calgary that's been talked about a lot for his success in the AHL, a two-time All-Star in the AHL. This is a player that's in a great spot right now, or a weird spot I should say, as Jacob Markstrom is going for the team after being the starter for 4 years. Why is he gone? Well, he was traded from Calgary to New Jersey in a deal that looks like it could be good for the Devils, but it also might be good for Wolf as it opens the door for opportunities to be able to possibly be the future starter for Calgary in net. Not saying that's going to happen overnight, is what we saw last season with Wolf. Wasn't particularly great in the NHL as he played 17 games. The goals against average was not great. The save percentage wasn't particularly great. He had 7 games where he allowed 4 goals or more. All something that you could point at and say, well, that's not very good if we're looking at him possibly being our future star. However, I want to be a little bit of a realist here. He is 23 years old. He doesn't have a lot of NHL experience, and goalies can have highs and lows. So I'm not going to judge a young goalie over one season when we will see older goalies that have had good careers before have bad years. Looking at this for Wolf, I really am just looking at the season more about whether or not he can get into a consistent backup role at the very least and maybe get 20 to 30 games of NHL experience and try to build off what we saw last season, improve upon it, or maybe even have a pretty good year. We say, oh, maybe next year he could be the starter for us. Am I getting a little bit ahead of myself here? Maybe, but we've seen what he's done in the AHL, and I feel like I'm hoping Calgary can have their guy. Plus, I'm going to be honest, how cool would it be to have a guy with the last name Wolf? He would be a fan favorite, and if he was a monster net, it would be like Cujo Jr. or something like that. So we'll see exactly how this all plays out, and I'm hoping that Wolf can have a good second, I guess third season, as he did play 1 game in the season prior to this past season. Anyway, you get my gist here. Hopefully it's the year of the Wolf, even though it may not be. The second storyline is talking about how valuable Andrei Kuzmenko will be for the team. Andrei Kuzmenko had a great rookie year with the Vancouver Canucks where he had 39 goals and looked to be an absolute threat. And then the following season, things did not go well for him as his opportunities slipped, the production slipped. All of these things were not good. So what happens? The Flames end up acquiring him, and he has 25 points in 29 games played. That is very good, with 14 of those being goals. So right away you're looking at this and seeing for Calgary, they could have a very, very good player, and they could have a revival of year one, Andrei Kuzmenko, which is what you would like to see. But I think for Calgary, they're looking at him and how he could be productive for them on the ice as well as off the ice. And what exactly do I mean by that? I'm talking about on-ice production, helping them win, helping them be competitive, bringing in fans, and all of those things. But off the ice, I'm talking about things that revolve around trades. And I'm looking at Kuzmenko, seeing him as a guy that would be a great trade candidate. Yes, he could be a good player for Calgary, but I believe at the moment he's already 28, or he's going to be 29 by the end of the season, and is a guy that is an unrestricted free agent after the end of this year. So if he's able to get hot, I say try to trade him. And I know that might seem a little bit unpopular, but I think with his age, he might not exactly fit what Calgary's timeline could be. And I just feel like, why would you risk him possibly walking in free agency when you could get a great return on him from getting a trade? Or even if you sign him to a short-term extension, I don't think it's going to necessarily match up with the value you could get from a trade return. Because if he is able to have a good year where he looks like he's set to be another 40-plus goal scorer, you know a lot of teams are going to be calling come playoff time as you get near the trade deadline and say, are you interested in trading Andrei Kuzmenko? What would you like to give up for him? Or what would you like to receive for him? And I think some teams will usually get fleeced in trade deals. I think for Craig Conroy, it'd probably be nice to look like he actually ended up fleecing another team in a trade. And for this case, I really just hope it works out for him and Andrei, as Kuzmenko is a player I enjoy watching play. And I'm hoping that he can be, again, a good player for the team, whether or not that comes as a guy that they end up shipping off, or as a guy that does play with them for 3, 4, 5 years. And then I think the third and final storyline is talking about whether or not there are more trades expected to follow. And in my eyes, the answer to this is is yes. Looking at Calgary, they have a lot of other players they could go out there and trade. Now, I think the bigger question is, out of those four guys, like you see with guys like Blake Coleman, Mackenzie Weegar, like guys like Jonathan Huberdeau, like you see with Nazem Kadri, you wonder exactly who is going to be shipped out of all that bunch. If I'm being honest, I really only think it's going to be Blake Coleman. He had a career year last year, and he's got 2 years left on his deal. As for the rest of them, I think with Huberdeau, pretty much a guaranteed no. I think when you're looking at him, a lot of money left on the deal, not playing well, probably not in a great spot mentally, knowing that he saw Matthew Tkachuk win the championship with his old team, but he's probably not out. Mackenzie Weegar is more of an interesting option there, but at the end of all this, I kind of feel like with the Flames are in a spot where they have these deals, they're probably going to be stuck with for a bit. Now, on the flip side of that, I do think there are going to be other guys that get shipped out, but I think if you're a Calgary fan hoping to get a lot of these big deals off the books and get them over with, you're probably looking at a situation more like what we saw with the San Jose Sharks a few years ago, where they were strapped down with a lot of big contracts, especially to their blue line, and they couldn't move them until there was a couple years left, and they had to negotiate with those teams and try to work out a deal that was fair for both sides. At this point in time, you're probably going to be stuck with some of these deals like Huberdeau's for a while. Not saying that I have anything negative to say about Jonathan Huberdeau. I want him to be able to go out there and succeed again, but I do think at the moment he could be a name you could be getting used to for a bit here, as Calgary is going to be shipping off some guys, yes, but other guys are unfortunately here to stay. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Calgary Flames? Well, this is a team that dropped from 93 points to 81 points, and it kind of feels like they are stuck in a spot where they're not going to be competitive. And in my eyes, I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't think it's going to be super controversial here. Traded away your starting goalie, you're strapped down by big contracts that aren't necessarily beneficial to you. And you have some guys that had good runs with you, like Kuzmenko, but you're wondering if that's even going to be the case, and you could very well just trade him away. I think that the vision is for the long term. I feel like Calgary, it's been back and forth in my mind about where they've been, but I feel like at this point, it's kind of cemented my eyes, what I'm seeing here, that they aren't going to be a playoff side, which is unfortunate because you're seeing two teams specifically in the Edmonton Oilers and the Vancouver Canucks that are Canadian sides that you aren't a big fan of, having good years last year and possibly having good years again this year. Nobody wants to go out there and watch their rivals have success on the ice. I mean, Edmonton nearly won the Stanley Cup. Vancouver won the division. These are all things Calgary probably isn't excited about. But for the fans, it's not necessarily like you could keep trying to keep things going, because looking at all they achieved over the past, let's say like 7-ish years or something like that, there wasn't a whole lot. Pacific Division title, they never made it past the second round. This was a team that had some good years, but usually was headed for an early exit. I shouldn't say usually, it was basically always headed for an early exit, and they were regressing. There's not really a whole lot they can do in the now, and for most Calgary fans, I'd imagine them to be relatively reasonable here, but for the ones that are hoping to actually do something, how would you expect them to do that, I guess, is my way of looking at it. And while it all does seem very sad for the team, they still had a very exciting top 10 pick this year. They have Wolf that could go out there and possibly be their future starter they get to watch this season. So in the coming years, they could be looking back at this and saying that they got to watch a team before it was good, seeing the building blocks and seeing them grow and play. And that's kind of what it's all about with the rebuild. If it does pan out, is saying that you got to witness it in front of your eyes, and that's actually kind of something that's special for fans. So this is all a doom and gloom, I guess, season preview for the team. But again, in 3 or 4 years, could we be talking about Calgary being on the rise? That is something we get to figure out. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the Calgary Flames? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.